Welcome to this latest edition of Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, Surreal Gerald Quinn, on this 1st March 2021. This is episode 761 of the Real Deal Podcast. Man, the year's gone by quick already. It's almost March. It is March, and the year already in the third month of 2021. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. A lot to discuss here on this podcast. We'll begin, as always, with around the NBA. Um, Good game yesterday. Great game yesterday between the Clippers and Milwaukee. Milwaukee came out on top, 105 to 100. Two teams. These are two similar teams in that I don't believe either one of them are going to win a championship or even get to the finals for that matter. But they are two contenders, and I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them didn't get to the conference finals. I'm really not that high on either one of these teams for various reasons. The Clippers doing what the Clippers do, and that is come up small in the closing minutes, and especially in the closing minutes, and not be able to finish off a game. So the Clippers were up 100 to 96. We're about 4 minutes. I have it up here. We're about 4 minutes left, and the shots that they got for a team that has two All NBA caliber players, a guy in Kawhi Leonard, who we know is a superstar, and a guy in Paul George, who has been a perennial All-Star, All NBA, was third in the MVP voting about 3 years back. You would have thought that this team was a 20-win team. I mean, when you have players of that magnitude, you're supposed to get better shots than what the Clippers got down the stretch of that game. They got a lot. We're talking jump shots, fade, step back, 27-foot 3-point shots. And these were not by Patrick Beverleys of the world or Marcus Morris. These shots were taken by Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And to me, it is a complete breakdown all around. Obviously, you look at the players make plays, players make shots. But I also have to look at Tyronn Lue in terms of how this offense is constructed and why they consistently come up small um, and struggle to finish games. We saw it in the Brooklyn game last Sunday. So this is a deeper problem um, than just Kawhi Leonard and Paul George coming up small. I mean, again, their offense. If you have those two guys on the court, you should be able to get way better shots than they got down the stretch against a Milwaukee team that we know is not good defensively. I mean, to only be able to score 100 points against Milwaukee defensively this year has been awful. Everybody's putting between 110 and 120 on Milwaukee easily, nightly. I mean, their defense has been for the most part has been pathetic for the most part. So uh, it's hard to say. It's hard to call it a bad loss considering Milwaukee's still a pretty good team, still playing against the MVP of the league and Giannis, who had a big game. And you can listen. Let me get. Let me get to Giannis in a second. Um, I'm not gonna call it a bad loss, but it's one of those losses where it's a game that the Clippers absolutely should have won. Milwaukee, it's not like Milwaukee went out there and set the world on fire in those last 5 minutes. I mean, Milwaukee was struggling to score in those last in the final quarter as well. Um, and like, I don't even think Milwaukee played that well, to be honest with you. Now I know Milwaukee has won five straight, but they don't look like the team that they're not the team that they were last year, and in the previous 2 years for that matter. And there's a variety of reasons for that. There are thoughts that they are experimenting on some things, trying some new things, trying to turn around their playoff fortunes in the last 2 years by sacrificing some regular season wins. We will see how that pans out. Drew Holiday, of course, was for a couple of weeks with COVID, so that was that certainly hurt their team. But as far as the Clippers goes, the Clippers there is a element of there's an it factor that you see in a championship team that the Clippers, frankly, just don't have. It's just again we know they have the talent. I don't think I don't think they are as talented as they were last year. There are some people out there who believe they have better personnel than last year. I don't believe that. I don't believe that myself. But it's not even about the talent. It is about the fact that they don't have enough guys that you can trust down the stretch of a big game or of a close game. I mean, Kawhi Leonard. Listen, I trust Kawhi Leonard. I've seen him enough times make big shots in big moments. He's a Finals MVP, even though he came up small. Came up small last year in that Denver series, especially towards the last three games, and even Game 7. But for the most part, Kawhi Leonard's body of work in big moments speaks for itself. I don't trust anybody else on that team in a big spot that can make it. That's going to make a big shot. Not Marcus Morris, not Paul George, not Patrick Beverly, not Nicholas Batum. Lou Williams has been awful in the playoffs. I don't trust any of their other players in a big spot, and that's what it comes down to with the Clippers. Clippers, they're gonna have a good record. You're gonna be looking at the Clippers. People are gonna be, talking about the Clippers defensively, talking about the Clippers, their, offensive production, which is high, but again, they don't have that intangible to be able to win to win an NBA championship. And again, I would not be surprised if the Clippers did not make the conference finals. As far as Milwaukee goes, and the Greek goes, listen, we knew that it was going to be an uphill battle or it was going to be almost impossible for the Greek to win the third straight MVP. That he would have to put up some just like Wilt Chamberlain type numbers, and they obviously would have to have a better record this year than they did. They would obviously have to have a better record than they currently have right now. But make no mistake about it, this guy he's been phenomenal this year. And in these last 10 games, these last 2 weeks, he's playing like an MVP. And if Milwaukee does keep winning, he definitely deserves some consideration. Like he should be. If Milwaukee keeps, let's say Milwaukee runs off, 3 or 4, like 10 straight. He deserves some. You can't just eliminate him completely from the MVP conversation. Let me look up Giannis' numbers real quick. All right, I know I'm gonna guess they're around 28, 11, and 5, but I'll look them up real quick. He is. He is. Wow, they're actually better than him. Okay, so these numbers are ridiculous this year. He's 29, basically 29, 12, and 6. Shooting 55% from the field. Now, free throw, we know he's been struggling for the free throw line, 66%, and only 29% from the 3-point line. I mean, he's basically got the same stats as he did last year in his MVP year, to be honest with you. It is basically the same numbers. I mean, his rebound is down a little. Yeah, his rebounding down a little bit. Assist about the same. Field goal percentage a little bit higher. 3-point percentage down. I mean, he's basically putting up the same numbers he was in his MVP season. So I wouldn't vote for him for MVP this year right now, but you can't just completely just dismiss him from the conversation. Like he's a top 5 candidate right now. He's top 5 MVP candidate. Without question, he's a top 5 MVP candidate right now. He cannot be dismissed from the conversation. Like we can't start taking 29, 11, and 6 for granted. Like he's only like at this point, like it's just like no, like you can't take those numbers for granted. His production's for granted. Now, in all fairness, to be fair about it, last year he was Defensive Player of the Year. he has not been as good defensively, which certainly has contributed to some of their defensive woes. So we gotta be fair about that. We're gonna give him Defensive Player of the Year for playing for a team that had the number one defensive efficiency last year. Then you have to knock him when the team is basically middle of the pack defensively this year. That is fair. But he's without question a legit MVP candidate. So good game yesterday. Excellent. A good game yesterday. Bad finish for the Clippers. Nice win for the Bucks. Of course, we have some comments made by Zlatan, who is a soccer player. Is a soccer player from the MLS. He basically made a comment that LeBron basically said that LeBron James should shut up and dribble. Didn't say those words exactly, but I'm paraphrasing. Basically said, "Hey, athletes should stick to playing sports, and let the politicians stick to politics." LeBron had a response for this, saying that I have a school with over 300 kids. I'm the voice of those kids, and basically he's going to continue to do what he does, and basically called Zlatan out for being a hypocrite, because a couple of years ago Zlatan was speaking out about racism, I believe in Sweden, so called him out for that, and said you're the wrong, I'm the wrong one to come at, because I do my homework, which we know LeBron James does. So here's the thing. First of all, I didn't even know that they even made athletes like this anymore, who still have this kind of, I want to say, I don't like to say it, I'm saying who still basically have a slave mentality. Like, I don't understand how you could be an athlete in the 21st century and have that mindset where you just are content with just being a worker, and you're not evolving. Like, at some point in Zlatan's career, he's not going to be able to play soccer. So what's going to be next? Like, if you have that mindset where you're just a help, you're just the expensive help. I mean, how there's no growth from that standpoint. And that's why you love the LeBron Jameses of the world, entrepreneur, businessman, entrepreneur. Obviously, we know what he does on the court and what he does in terms of education, and just pushing the envelope, using his platform to empower, African Americans. And LeBron is coming from a point of, yes, it's my responsibility as being one of the most famous athletes in the world to speak out for my people. That's where LeBron James is coming from. And I really, would like to. It's easy to knock Zlatan. He's an easy target at this point, but I really would want to know why he even has this type of mentality. To be honest with you, I don't want to make this into a culture thing. I don't know what his upbringing was. What he, I don't know. I just don't know. I'd be very curious to know why he thinks this way. But LeBron, checked him, and LeBron is 1,000% right. Like, it's got, like, as an African American man, having that platform, having the resources that LeBron has, he's using them in a way that's going to impact kids for generations upon generations. That's all it is to it. Bradley Beal continues just to light up the NBA. He had 46 points. In a loss, that was a bad loss for the Wizards. And it's hard to say a team that is 12-19 had a bad loss, but the Wizards have been playing well. They come into yesterday, they were 6-1 in their last 7 games, and they have been beating some good teams. They beat Denver on the road, but they swept the Nets for the season. They beat the Lakers, came back from 17 to beat the Lakers last week. So they have been playing well. Westbrook had picked it up, and we know Bill has been dominant throughout the course of the season and was well deserving of being an all-star starter. Had a tough loss. Should have won. Had a tough loss yesterday. Bill had a late turnover, and Tatum had made a couple shots. But bigger than that, there are a number of teams that really need to be in the Bradley Beal sweepstakes. And that list keeps adding, in my opinion. Like I said, the two teams that we talked about earlier could definitely use Bradley Beal, though I don't see a pathway for the Clippers being able to pick him up because they just don't have the assets unless they're talking about moving Paul George, which might not be. They don't have the guts. That would be interesting. That would I. I'm just first. I actually probably would make that move, to be honest with you. Paul George to Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is younger. He's less injury prone, and he's not afraid to take a big shot in the playoffs. I might have to think about that if I were the Clippers. They will. They will not do it. They don't have the guts to do it. Um, but I might have to think about that one. I hadn't really ever thought about that, but now that I think about it, that I think that probably would be a slight upgrade, especially in the postseason. But Milwaukee definitely should make a run for him. You can package Middleton and some picks, or Middleton, DiVincenzo, and somebody else to get Bradley Beal. So they definitely should make a run. And then we all know, and of course, the Sixers. As much as we love Ben Simmons, we repeatedly say that Bradley Beal would be a perfect fit with Philadelphia. But there is another team that I think will probably may be in the running for Bradley Beal, but it's not going to get a lot of pub right as of right now. Won't get a lot of pub right now, but the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the Lakers have won two straight games. They embarrassed, had a revenge win against Golden State. Remember, they played Golden State uh, earlier this season and blew a big lead, and they certainly took that out on Golden State last night with no Anthony Davis. Then Struder comes back. LeBron only plays 25 minutes, but I I'm a Laker fan, and I'm looking at this Anthony Davis injury situation, and I just don't see him coming back and being the Anthony Davis that we saw last season in the bubble and throughout the course of the regular season last year. I don't. I think that Anthony Davis is done for the season. Now again, and we're not talking about knee tendonitis here. We're not talking about ankle. We're talking about an Achilles. Okay, and we're talking about a guy who's had a history of being fragile um, physically. We know when he plays, he's a big time player and has performed at a high level, even in the playoffs throughout the course of his career. But this guy, I mean, he gets knocked down by a stiff draft. Oh, the wind knocks him down, seemingly. And if I'm the Lakers, I have to think short and long term here. I have to think in the short term, obviously trying to win a championship this year, but I also have to think about what is the best possible scenario for me to get the most out of the remaining years of LeBron James's career. And we initially thought that Anthony Davis would be the guy to add length to LeBron James's career. And I thought that, when they signed him in the offseason 2 years ago, thought like, yeah, this dude's going to add at least 3 years to LeBron James's career. But right now, I think if you're Lakers, and especially with the way Brooklyn's playing, I know they lost that. I know they lost Saturday, but they didn't have, no Kyrie, no Durant, and they had won 8 straight. I'm looking at Brooklyn. I'm saying we can't beat that team if Anthony Davis is at like 60% or 70%. Anthony Davis has to be a MVP caliber player in order to compete and beat that team. And that's the team that is the team that you're looking at for the Lakers. Thinking big picture. Utah, okay, we'll see about Utah in the playoffs. The rest of the Western Conference, I don't Phoenix. I don't try Phoenix, Dallas, the Clippers. The West is not strong this year at all. To be honest with you, it's not that strong. I need to see Portland get healthy if they ever get healthy. They never are. So you're really talking about beating one team in the NBA right now if you're the Lakers, and that team you should be focused on is the Brooklyn Nets. And to me, if you ever, if I had a chance to get Bradley Beal, if I can put a package together to get Bradley Beal, I think I would have to do it. I think I would have to do it now. Would you have to give up probably what Kuzman, a draft pick? Uh, might I wouldn't say Stroder, Montrezl Harrell probably Kuzman, Harrell, a draft pick, and that might not be enough. But Taylor Horton, that dude, probably him as well. They have some pieces. They have some assets, especially signing Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell. They have assets to do so. To at least make a competitive offer. It won't be the best offer as far as some comparison to what other teams could make. But I think you have to give it a thought if you're the Lakers, because I just Anthony Davis is just I just don't see him this year returning to the form that we saw him at last year. Just don't see it happening. So it'd be very interesting to see what the Lakers do in regards to that. There's been some talk about the Lakers going after a center. Okay, that's not. I don't think that will move the needle as far as a championship, but we'll see what happens. Lloyd Pierce, the ex Atlanta Hawk coach, is out after basically 2.5 years. You see the record, 49 and 100. That will get you fired, especially if you're a black coach in the NBA, in a heartbeat. Listen, the Hawks expected to make the playoffs this year. They went all in with the free agent signings: Gallinari, Bogdanovich, Rondo. Coming off a year where Trae Young was an All-Star. You have a nice young core: John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish. I mean, they should be better than 14 and 20, but Collins has missed some games. Trae Young has not come back the same player. Gallinari, of course, has missed games. That's what he does. And they just haven't all been. They got off to a decent start, pretty good start, but have tailed off. Listen, they're still in the mix to make the playoffs. I mean, it's in the Eastern Conference. You can have multiple. There might be multiple teams that get in the playoffs with under 500 records in the Eastern Conference. In the Eastern Conference this year, that is a very distinct possibility. You can't. Again, the room for error for a black coach in the NBA is just not. They're not going to give you. If the owner spends a ton of money and the team's expected to make the playoffs, and you already have had two losing seasons, so you don't have any equity. You can't say, "Well, I did make the playoffs last year or the year before." Like, nah, bro. It's nothing worse than an underachieving team that spent a ton of money, used a lot of their cap space, and fair or unfair, this is not a surprise. Or shouldn't be a shock whatsoever. I hope Lloyd Pierce gets another chance. Might be a while because again, he doesn't have any winning seasons in his bag. But that team is talented. They definitely have a lot of talent, and we'll see. They still have an opportunity. They still have an opportunity to make the playoffs. So there you go with the NBA. Very intrigued. I want to watch this game. I want to see tonight. As far as tonight's games, Kyrie Irving should play tonight. So Brooklyn, San Antonio. San Antonio quietly has been one of the best stories in the league in the NBA, especially in the Western Conference. They are fifth in the Western Conference right now at 17 and 12. So I'm very having interest in that particular game. That will be, I think it's like 8:30 tip off. So that's certainly a game to watch tonight. Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is for now the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, but clearly he wants out of Seattle. Late last week, his agent came out with a list of teams that he would be willing to go to. Now, before I get into this, I want to make this clear. Russell Wilson has not officially asked for a trade. He has not officially asked for a trade, which to me, I know why he hasn't, but it still doesn't make any sense. See, Russell Wilson wants it all. He wants to be traded, and he wants his image to be a still a squeaky clean. I'm not, I'm not the malcontent player. Russell, we everybody knows that if you do get traded, it will be because you wanted out. You're gonna go in the same block box as Deshaun Watson, as a player who forced his way out of his respective city. There's no two ways about it. So there's like he can do all this, you know. I haven't demanded a trade, but my agent's giving a list of teams that are we willing to go to. Eh, People, the media, everybody's gonna put him in that same box as a guy who wanted out. So I just don't I just come out. I wish I wish Russell Wilson would just come out and say, "I want to be traded. Here's why," and end the story. It would. Listen. Is what's we see it all the time. Especially in the NBA, guys demanding to be traded, and I don't frankly have a problem with Russell Wilson wanting to be traded. Um, Seattle, it's interesting. Seattle, you look at the genesis of this. When Seattle was great, when they were amongst the best teams in the league, they had two things going for them that were set in stone. You had a dynamic running game with Marshawn Lynch, and you had a lights out defense with Legion Boom and Bobby Wagner and those guys. You look at Seattle's defense from 2011 to 2000, and I'm going to say 16. They were a legit top. I don't think they finished lower than seventh in total defense, and they finished first four times. As their defense and running game has taken a step back, Wilson's numbers have gone up, and he's had his best years post Legion of Boom and post Seattle being a Super Bowl contender. So I find that it's very interesting from that standpoint. Now, where Russell Wilson is right. Listen, he has every right to hold the franchise accountable for not putting a championship caliber team around him. He has that right, especially playing the position of quarterback, and especially carrying as much weight as he carries on that team. So I have no problem with Wilson wanting to be out of Seattle. Um, if I'm Seattle, I would not trade him. Number one, and I would go out my way to build a super team and say, hey, Russell, this is the team. You're under contract. We're going to put these pieces in front of you, and we're going to go win the Super Bowl in 2020 in the 2021 season. That's what I would do. So I would not trade Russell Wilson if I were Seattle. You look at the teams that he mentioned, that his agent mentioned. Um, Two of them make sense, um, but really only one of them makes sense. I'm gonna tell you why. Chicago makes no sense to me. They that coaching staff, the offensive line isn't any good. They don't have a lot of weapons in Chicago. Um, that I just don't understand why Chicago would be on his list, other than the fact that it's a big media market. So I don't even understand Chicago at all. Dallas has weapons, but if you're Russell Wilson, you really want to go with that organization. You really want to go with that organization that shows year in year out that they can't get right. As far as, and I mean, there's a reason why Dallas hasn't been a Super Bowl contender in the last since 1996. Like that. So yeah, Dallas looks alluring in terms of the talent, but remember, and you got to think about this, if you're Russell Wilson, if they trade for you, they're going to be giving up a ton of draft capital and a lot of talent and players. John Snyder and Pete Carroll, you think that if they do move Russell Wilson, that they're not going to get a boatload of picks and great players going back, then you don't know how Seattle deals. You don't know how John Snyder deals. they're going to get a boatload of capital, draft capital, and talented players back if they move Russell Wilson. Trust me. So from that standpoint, I don't think that should be appealing. Dallas should be appealing. Las Vegas, okay, they have some weapons offensively. It's Las Vegas. Um, Mayock and Gruden have drafted well. Uh, defense, but again, that's a situation similar to what he had this year at the beginning of the season, where he would be carrying the team because the defense isn't that good. Now, New Orleans is to me the perfect fit with all the talent they have. Even if they were to give up some picks and a defensive player or offensive lineman, they're so loaded with talent and they do such a great job at developing talent and they're so well coached that if I'm Russell Wilson, if I'm pushing to go anywhere, it will be to the New Orleans Saints. We'll talk about Drew Brees later, but let's say for a second, for argument's sake, that Drew Brees decides to retire. There's no question. It wouldn't be no issue about who the quarterback is. You could use Taysom Hill again as you could use Taysom Hill again in terms of the gimmick plays and things of that nature. Put him back in that role, and probably you wouldn't trade Jameis Winston because he could be a backup. But that to me, if I'm Russell Wilson, and if it's all about winning, if it's all about winning, then to me, there's only one team that should be on this list, and that's the New Orleans Saints. I'm not sure that it's all about winning with Russell Wilson, and that sounds crazy to say because this is a guy who, through his first 9 years, has been no quarterback has won more games in the regular season through his first 9 years, along with having 2 Super Bowl appearances and 1 Super Bowl. But there is this thought process that Wilson wants to be in a major market, in a big market, in an attention-seeking market like Dallas, like Las Vegas, like Chicago, as far as media capital. There's that sense. He is married to Sierra. He is married to Sierra. Don't forget about that part of this equation as well. But to me, there's one choice here in terms of which team would make the most sense. And by the way, in terms of having the most assets and talent, is to me clearly New Orleans from that standpoint. Now again, if I'm Seattle, I'm not trading them. It's just not. Like you're under. We're too close. And again, the thing Seattle can use against Wilson is his protection of his image. Like that's a real thing. Like they can definitely use that against him as far as refusing to trade him. Because is Russell Wilson really going to threaten to sit out a season? No. Or is he going to actually sit out a season? No. I actually think Deshaun Watson would sit out the season and sacrifice $21 million. I don't think Russell Wilson will even threaten to sit out the season. Because I don't think Russell Wilson wants that perception of the fans as being this quote unquote malcontent or being somebody that comes off as being putting himself ahead of the team. I think he definitely cares about his Q rating and things of that nature. So that is something that Seattle has in his back pocket as far as when as time goes along. I think what eventually happens is he ends up back in Seattle at least for this year, and we see how this year turns out. There's also another scenario that could keep him in Seattle, and it was talked about. This I've heard this as well as possibly would Seattle fire Pete Carroll, and I have to see it to actually believe it. I have to actually see that to believe it. Pete Carroll, of course, has had a great record with Seattle. But it is, I will say this, and I'm gonna put a bow on this. The genesis of this wouldn't even be talked about if Seattle had repeated as Super Bowl champions in 2014. It wouldn't even be an issue. if Pete Carroll, when they try to outthink the game, handed the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, touchdown, Seattle is back-to-back champions. Think about this. Well, one of the reasons why Russell Wilson is asking for a trade is he's 32 years old, and they have not won a playoff game since the Super Bowl win against Denver. I think that was Super Bowl 48. Yeah, I think that was Super Bowl. I believe Super Bowl 47 or 48. I believe it was 47. Yeah, 48, Super Bowl 48. Have not won a playoff, have lost 5 straight playoff games since that. Have not even advanced. Well, since they lost the Super Bowl to New England, have not even advanced past the divisional round. So he's starting to think about his legacy and probably thinking to himself, I should have more than just one Super Bowl. I don't want to end up like Aaron Rodgers is right now, have all these numbers and awards and things and what have you, and only have one Super Bowl to show for it. So don't think that. So to me, this started with that Super Bowl loss, and even though Seattle has been good since then, they've been good. They have not reached that level. They have not reached that level of being a contender since that Super Bowl loss. So that to me is the genesis of all of this when you really dig deep and think about it. But again, my prediction is he will not be traded this offseason, and Seattle will, they will kind of mend fences and go out and try to go all in for 2021. So going to switch gears a bit. Of course, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is going to roll out this week. It will be the third vaccine joining the Moderna and Pfizer. It is not as effective as those two vaccines are at 85%. Those vaccines are well into the mid 90s as far as effective, as far as being, protection from the virus. But you only have to take one shot of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And it does not have to be frozen. As you can see, it can be stored in refrigerators up until 3 months. Question now, you know where I stand. I'm not taking the vaccine until I absolutely have to, and it may not even take a day. So yeah, like I'm good. I'm waiting on the vaccine. But hypothetically speaking, and I'm put this question out there once this episode is completed. Which vaccine would you take if you had a choice? There are people. Most doctors will tell you if you have a chance to take any of them. If you have because this rollout has been just hideous, and because it has been challenging to say the least, you take the one that's first available. If you're willing, if you are willing to take the vaccine at all, just take the first available one, no matter which one it is. But if you had a choice, which one would you take? You're sacrificing effectiveness for only having to take it once. I mean, it's an interesting question. I probably would lean towards the Johnson & Johnson just because I don't, just because of the one shot. Like you tell me, I'd give me one shot and that's it, and then I don't have to worry about it until probably next year because it's the way COVID is going. It's probably people are probably going to take vaccines every year in a year. It's probably going to be something similar to like the flu shot. But if you take the Moderna and Pfizer, take the first shot and get a schedule to take the second shot, then you count on the government, you count on the fact that it might you're putting a lot you're putting a lot of trust in the fact that it will be available. That second shot will be available, considering just how difficult it has been in regards to how tricky it can be to freeze the Moderna and Pfizer with how many things have to be put in place just to maintain those particular vaccines. And more, I mean, listen, I haven't heard anybody who's taken the first shot not be able to get the second one as of yet. We haven't heard those horror stories. But I think that I would lean towards, if I were to take the shot, to get the vaccine shot, I would lean towards um, the Johnson and Johnson shot, which is basically a one and done. And I'm gonna tell you this as well, and this is a perfect example too of not rushing to immediately taking the first rollout of vaccines. The vaccines are going to get better and more advanced as time goes on. So to me, and again, if you I can understand, like a person in their 60s, or somebody like in their 60s and 70s, or has underlying conditions. I totally get it. I totally get it. You probably seen people die of COVID. You probably fearful of your own life in regards, especially if you have underlying conditions. I can't, even for your own psychological peace of mind. I can understand why you would want to take the vaccine immediately. But if you're somebody with no underlying conditions, if you can wait and are still willing to take the vaccine, it will not hurt you at all to wait for them to improve the vaccine that much more. These doctors and medical technology is as good as it's ever been. Science is as good as it's ever been. The vaccine will get better as time goes along. Just like any other thing in with technology, the more and more research is done, the more and more money is put into it, it will improve. So I don't think you can be hurt by waiting an extra month or two, or waiting to see how this turns out, and waiting to the summertime or towards the latter part of the year. Now again, this is a totally different conversation with someone with underlying conditions, or someone at a very advanced age. Totally understand a 75-year-old rushing to take the vaccine. I'll be honest with you. But again, if you made me make the choice, probably would choose Johnson Johnson. Couple of real thoughts before we wrap up. So I had this story came out about 3 weeks ago. So I apologize for being late to the party from that standpoint. But I frankly did not see it blow up and be talked about the way that you would think it would, considering the person who made the statements. So Denzel Washington had some comments on policing. Um, and I have his exact comments right here. Um, was on an interview promoting, of course, the movie, The Little Things, that came out about a month ago. So here's what he says. I have the utmost respect for, and he's talking about law enforcement. He's talking about a situation that he went out. He was, getting ready for Ricochet. This is, of course, back in the day, back in like 1990, 91. And he was out with some cops. So he was getting ready training for Ricochet. And he says, in an instant, it taught me what law enforcement people have to deal with. I have the utmost respect for what they do, for what our soldiers do that sacrifice their lives. I just don't care for people who put those kind of people down. Weren't for them, we would not have the freedom to complain about what they do. So the situation he's talking about, apparently some cops that he was with de-escalated a situation that, according to him, could have went south, as if they were going to kill somebody in front of Denzel Washington, and as if that's not their job to de-escalate situations and not actually shoot a person or persons. Couple things. First of all, Denzel is clearly taking a shot at Black Lives Matter. Um, that goes without saying. And because I haven't heard people complain about police or protest about police who are de-escalating situations and who are using their voices instead of using force. I've heard. Please email, not email, but send it to me. DM me. Please send me those articles. Please send me those articles on people who are protesting cops when they don't use force, when they actually have a conversation, when they actually, protect and serve instead of exhibit harm and you know danger to the community, especially African Americans. Denzel is very and give you some more context. Denzel also is promoting. He's getting ready to shoot another film with some cops as well. So keep that in mind. So clearly, this was a tone deaf statement by Denzel. Um, Again, if you know anything about how I feel about acting and you would know that there's not a bigger Denzel Washington fan than me. I think Denzel Washington is, in my opinion, the greatest actor of all time, and definitely deserves to be in that conversation. We know what Denzel brings to the table as an actor, but he got to lose some points on this, man. You got to lose some points on with this statement. Uh, and then this led me down a bit of a rabbit hole with some of his statements in the past about even the structure of the family home. He's repeatedly talked about it's not the system in regards to mass incarceration, but it is the lack of fathers in the African American households. Now, that even that is not all the way true because there are a number of it kind of adds to the narrative that there are not any good black fathers out there, which we know is complete bullshit. Which is a media created narrative, but also he doesn't mention the fact that the system he doesn't hold the system of systematic racism. He doesn't hold that accountable. Like two things can be true. Yes, a fathers need to be in their children's lives, black, white, brown, or otherwise, but there's a reason why there are a number of African American males in prison. Um, if you really want to dig deep and go down that rabbit hole and go to the origins of that of how the system is basically designed to mass incarcerate African Americans. And I just think Denzel, just missed the boat here, and just and you can listen. You don't have to be all or nothing. Like I said, two things can be true. Situations have nuance to them. Some of these subject matters have nuance to it. Um, so I'm not gonna call Denzel a sellout. Not gonna say he's a coon, nothing like that. Not gonna put that on him. But he dropped the ball on this. And I will say this: Denzel is operating from a perspective of privilege as well. Denzel Washington is filthy rich. He's not. Denzel's been a $20 million film actor for a long time now. So understand that too. Denzel is not trying to mess up his money by being by coming close to being anywhere near uh, controversial or coming at cops. So keep that in mind. Not too many. Listen, it just goes to show you the Jim the Muhammad Ali's of the world, the Tamika Mallory's of the world, the people that are out there on the front lines. Even you can hate Black Lives Matter all you want, but Alicia Garza is out there risking her life, having death threats every day, fighting for something that she believes in, and she does believe she does not believe in police killing innocent black men or spray paint or pepper spraying 9-year-old children. Okay, so it just gives you a more of a higher respect for the people who are out there doing the work and who are not Colin Kaepernick, who are not afraid to speak their minds, thinking about what money could possibly be lost or endorsements or, what could be said about them. So again, my respect for Denzel as an actor has not changed, but you know, he missed. He was definitely tone deaf with these comments. Vanessa Bryant came out with an Instagram post this weekend in regards to really wanting to hold police officers accountable for the police officers that took pictures of the tragic helicopter accident with Kobe Bryant and of course Gigi and the seven others that were killed. Now apparently these cops were not only took pictures of the wreckage and of the bodies, they showed them to various people in a bar. They sent them to people, to friends of theirs, and Vanessa Bryant is not tolerating any disrespect on the name of Kobe Bryant, whether it's from Meek Mill, whether it's from Rachel Evan Wood, whoever. She's coming for anybody that seemingly that even comes close to trying to tarnish the legacy of one Kobe being Bryant. And listen, it is absolutely her right to do so. I'm not blaming her at all. I'm knocking her at all for protecting Kobe Bryant's name or the name of her daughter, her late daughter Gigi. You just wonder, with Vanessa Bryant being clearly a public figure now, and that name Vanessa Bryant, she has millions of followers on Instagram. You just wonder if she's ever going to get a chance to properly grieve the loss, because she even the stuff that she had to deal with her, I believe her mom, and it's just something. It's seemingly one thing after another, and she cannot. There's no way that she's been able to properly grieve the death of Kobe and Gigi. There's just no way. So I just hope that she can one day, that situations that situations don't occur to where she has to respond to them, that to where she can kind of quietly go about her business and just and grieve the loss and grieve the tragic loss of one Kobe Bryant, so and Gigi Bryant. But again, as far as her protecting the name of Kobe Bryant and Gigi, she has every right to do so. Every right. No qualms with that whatsoever. We mentioned this earlier, Drew Brees. We talked about Drew Brees. He apparently had a workout video this weekend that came out. It was expected that he was going to retire. He, of course, has not officially announced his retirement. But the door is open for him to possibly come back. Listen, the Drew Brees that we saw at the end of last season, there's no way that guy could play quarterback at a high level in the NFL, and he would be absolutely doing New Orleans a favor if he retired. To be honest with you, like that. So I think he probably would. Guys start training. It does look strange for a guy to be training that hard and being retired and be considered and be retired. But I think that if you maybe had to guess it, I think he probably will. I think he will probably retire. If you're New Orleans, you have to give. You can't. If you're New Orleans, you have to give him the cold shoulder, especially with this Russell Westbrook possible trade situation. Even Deshaun Watson is still out there to be traded. So if I'm New Orleans, I'm like, go let Drew. We probably think it's in the best interest of the organization for you not to play next year. That's what I would. I think they should outright just get rid of Drew Brees, but we'll see what happens with that. And lastly, J.J. Watt signs a 2-year, $31 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals. A little bit surprised but a little bit surprised. I thought Pittsburgh was, was the leader in the clubhouse, but it's just, money is money at the end of the day. I mean, he's going to make $23 million guaranteed. 2 years, $31 million. I don't know how much. I think at this stage in his career, he would be a great situational pass rusher on third downs. I don't think that the J.J. Watt, that 3-time defensive player of the year, all pro, perennial all pro, that dude is gone. That guy is gone. But I do think you can never have enough pass rushers. And they have Chandler Jones, who's one of the best pass rushers in the country, in the league. I do think he could still be somewhat effective, but I don't. Again, he was healthy this year, but he's had some health issues in the past 4 or 5 years. But listen, as long as you know that this guy, that he's no longer more likely an every down player, and as long as you can use him, um, he still has some use. But again, the J.J. Watt of yesteryear, that guy is done. And I think he's still relatively young, 30, 31, but there's a lot of mileage and a lot of injury history on that body, pure and simple. That's going to wrap it up to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. As always, you can find this podcast go to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my channel, comment on the podcast. This podcast will be up before the end of the night. I will see you later on in the week with episode 2, with a look at episode 3 of Snowfall. Have a great, great Monday evening and have a great rest of your week. I'm out.